Blackbeard is not the first pirate to carry 2 devil fruits. 40 years before him, another man did the same, and the world government erased him from every book on Earth. His name was Gol D Xebec, captain of monsters. Kaido obeyed him, Big Mom obeyed him, Whitebeard obeyed him. He was the most feared pirate in 800 years. On a burning island called God Valley, he stood alone. Roger and Garp stood frozen, unable to attack him together. Behind them, 3 marine admirals waited for the final signal, and behind the admirals, the god of the world watched. Rocks raised both hands toward the burning red sky. Darkness poured from one palm like a living shadow. Earthquake tremor pulsed from the other, splitting the ground. 2 devil fruits inside one body, defying every natural law. What this man did next was erased from history. Every archive burned, every witness killed or sworn quiet. Only Sengoku kept the secret in his old heart. He was not a man, he was a hunger. To understand the night God Valley vanished from the maps, we travel back 50 years before that final battle. Back to a boy on a forbidden island nobody named. A boy who became the man Blackbeard secretly copied today. God Valley never appeared on any official marine sea chart. The government pretended the island did not exist. Sailors who reached its black cliffs never returned home. Direct descendants of the oldest erased pirate in history. His mother covered his mouth whenever ships approached the coast. His father wore a black coin around his weathered neck. The boy was named Davy D. Xebec at birth. He told him his blood belonged to Davy Jones, the first man to call himself king of the world, before the Void Century, before Emu stole the crown. Xebec listened as the wind whipped his black hair. He stared at the elder's identical coin against the moon. Something broke inside him that night under cold stars, and something greater began forming silently within his chest. The next dawn, he asked the elder one dangerous question, unless he silenced it before the government found him. But Xebec did not silence it. He fed it daily. Stories of Joy Boy, of giant warriors, of the treasure, of a god in white flowers who hunted his bloodline. By 15, Xebec lifted boulders 3 men could not move. The elder warned his power would attract the Marines. He took his father's black coin as the only inheritance. His mother found him at the shore before dawn. She touched his forehead with 2 fingers, soft and steady. She told him if the sea swallowed him, so be it. But if he returned with the crown, hide his name. No enemy could ever trace the Davy bloodline again. Xebec nodded. He pushed the raft into black water. He vanished into the west blue before the sun arrived. He would not see his mother alive ever again. For 3 years, nobody on the seas heard of him. He learned haki by clashing with sea kings twice his size. He stole a sword from a sleeping officer in a tavern. By 18, he carried a small bounty for coastal raids. 2 drunken sailors spoke of a chest on a small island. Inside lay a fruit dark as a starless night, an echo that had slept for 800 years. The fruit was calling him before he had seen it. That same night, he stole a ship and sailed north. He followed the sailors' clues through dangerous coral reefs. He found the cavern where the sea whispered against walls. Inside lay the chest, half buried in damp black sand. When he lifted the lid, the fruit pulsed weakly inside, like a heart about to stop after centuries of waiting. The fruit warmed against his hand as if alive. It recognized something in his blood no bearer had carried. It was the Yami Yami no Mi, the most feared fruit, the one that devours light and crushes everything touched. Xebec bit into it without a moment of hesitation. The pain forced him to kneel for hours in the cavern. His Davy blood touched the ancient forbidden power. When he stood, the water had become liquid black darkness. Torch flames bent inward, devoured by the new presence. He left the cavern with another being inside his chest. His gaze was different. His smile was different. 3 weeks later, a marine fleet ambushed him near an archipelago. Xebec destroyed 3 ships with one open palm of darkness. Sails, masts, sailors, swallowed by a black hole. He trained for months before he could lift it again. He learned the Yami Yami forgave nothing. Each use stole years. Xebec stared at the drunkard for one silent instant. 3 borrowed letters now hid an 8th century secret. Gol D Xebec was sailing again, perfectly disguised. And somewhere in the new world, a man watched him. The man was 22 and already feared across 5 seas. Edward drew his naginata. Rocks did not even turn. Neither yielded, neither fell, neither accepted any defeat. At dawn on the 4th day, Edward collapsed from exhaustion. He said he had found his first true nakama. Newgate accepted, not from fear, not from respect. He had seen in Rox's eyes what he himself sought, a family willing to embrace the monsters the world rejected. Shiki lost 3 trials in a row and swore loyalty, escaped from Mary Joie's carrying secrets nobody else held. She handed Rox a paper written in dark blood. Inside was Imu's real name and the Flower Hall's address. Rox read it once. He named her Intelligence Chief. Without those two, no crew could ever defeat the world. Rox found her eating on a floor of fresh corpses. He offered her every cake in the world to join. Charlotte Linlin looked at him with hollow eyes and accepted. Rox saw a walking bomb wrapped in curling pink hair, an 11-year-old boy on a drifting boat in open water, fighting a sea king bare-handed under the open sun. He learned to kill with efficiency that reshaped Wano. The crew was finally complete. They needed a fortress base, Hachinosu, ruled by an old pirate king named Dogless. The assault lasted exactly 1 single burning night. Big Mom devoured entire regiments without ever once chewing. That night, he planted his red flag above the palace, but something else changed inside him that same night. In a harbor tavern, a young woman looked at him directly. She wore a stained apron. She did not tremble. She was the only person in Hachinosu unafraid of him. Her name was Eris, daughter of a murdered Hachinosu merchant. Celestial dragons had killed her father over a stolen bell. She worked the tavern, waiting for vengeance she could not deliver. Rox spent 3 hours watching her in silence, not for the beer, for something quieter in his chest. Stassi noticed first. She approached him one quiet dawn. Rox listened, but for the first time he ignored her. Davy Blood had laughed alone for centuries. It deserved laughter. Newgate noticed second. He asked one night on deck. Rox answered, slowly, that she did not know completely. Newgate said the day she knew, she would leave. Rox watched him long and said perhaps he was right, but he did not leave her. He kept going each night. 3 months of silent visits at her tavern table. Until one dawn, in his palace room, Eris asked him. She asked what exactly he was trying to destroy. Why a man with 2 fruits could not sleep one night. Rox stared at her for a long, motionless minute. He told her his blood had been hidden 800 years, that he would reclaim the crown the gods had stolen. Eris walked to the window and watched the dark sea. She asked if it was worth destroying the world to rule. Rox did not know how to answer her question. That question would haunt him every single night that followed. Many years later, dying on the ground of God Valley, that same question would return one final time. But that dawn, Eris did not wait for any answer. She walked to him. She kissed him for the first time. She told him that while he decided, she would stay. That night, Gol D, Xebec, the most feared monster, stopped being only a monster and became something else. Newgate heard Rox's quiet laugh for the first time, and he knew in that instant that something had broken. 3 months later, Eris noticed something strange in her body, a tiredness, a heaviness, a seed growing in silent rhythm. She visited the old island healer one gray morning. The healer examined her, smiled, and whispered the truth softly. Eris returned to the palace, walking slowly along the docks. She found Rox on the deck, watching the gray horizon. She whispered in his ear, where nobody else could hear. She told him he was going to become a father. And Gol D, Xebec, the most feared monster of all, felt for the first time in his life a real fear. Rox did not answer her that whole long red afternoon. He stayed watching the horizon without moving for hours. That night, he opened a box brought from God Valley. Inside lay a lock of his mother's silver hair. Then he made the decision that would change every future. The baby would grow in God Valley, under elder care, far from Hachinosu, far from his pirate war, far from him. And if it was a boy, he would not carry Davy. He would use Eris's last name, a borrowed, worthless name. The government would never trace him through ordinary names. When they arrived, the elders received them in heavy silence. Rox's mother had died the year before, peacefully, of age. Only the cliff elder remained alive, by then nearly blind. Rox left her there with 5 trustworthy clan families. He gave her the black coin from his murdered father. He promised to return before the baby was born. He hid 3 months in another distant sea before reaching home. It was a healthy boy, sleeping, already heavy in the arms. Rox sailed to God Valley without a single stop for rest. He reached the island one red summer afternoon of light. The elder waited on the beach with the baby in arms. He slept with a crooked smile already forming on his lips. Eris came out of the house with tired but shining eyes. The baby was strange. Everyone in the clan noticed it, and sometimes while he slept on the wooden crib, finally he told Rox a truth he hid from Eris. This baby carried something no Davy had ever carried before. When grown, this baby might wear 2, 3 devil fruits inside without dying. He was the complete version of his father. Rox stared at the baby long and held him close. He whispered something in his ear Eris could not hear. He whispered that someday, when he himself was gone, his son would finish what he was about to begin. A simple name, without weight, without history, without marks. Eris thought a long while looking at the sleeping infant. She would call him Marshall, after an old marshal, Marshal D. Teach, 3 borrowed words hiding a forbidden lineage. At dawn, Rox set sail back toward distant Hachinosu. He looked back one last time at the small beach. Eris held the baby in the warm, rising sunlight. That image stayed burned inside his heart until his last day. The following years, men stopped speaking of governments at all. They stopped speaking of kings, only of one flame-red flag. The Rox pirates crossed the new world like a wordless storm. Kaido toppled entire kingdoms by himself in a single afternoon. Newgate split islands in half when his patience broke. Shiki commanded the sky with his floating armada fleet, and at their front walked Rox D. Xebec, calmly smiling. But no crew member knew the secret beneath those battles. Every victory was a single step toward the god Imu. Every dead admiral was a stair up toward the flower hall. Every fallen flag was a coded message only Imu could read. Roger did not want to destroy the world like Rox. Roger wanted to find it, find the truth, find the treasure. Rox was alone, drinking quietly in a small harbor tavern. Roger entered, saw him, recognized him by the black coin. He ordered a beer. He drank it. He asked one question. He asked if Rox really wanted to destroy the world. He said he did not want to destroy it. The historic plaza fight began without a single witness. Rox looked at Roger. He smiled that crooked smile. That was their only official fight before God Valley. Rox listened, but he did not change his attacking strategy. He was accelerating time on purpose without telling anyone. A map with the exact location of Laugh Tale itself. He wanted to reach the end of the sea before dying. He wanted to read the poneglyphs. Speak the true name, Marshall said his first words with a familiar crooked smile. Eris taught him to read in secret with salvaged books. She spoke of a father who would come back one day. Sometimes, playing on the beach, he watched the sea long, as if waiting for someone running late at sea. Because in Mary Gioa's, Imu had received a disturbing report, but Rox had a private problem nobody else could see. Each time he used both fruits, his body broke a little. Stussy gave him 5 years before he collapsed forever. So Rox decided to do something no pirate had attempted. He would enter Mary Joy's alone without his crew. He would walk into the holy land of the world. He would look the god named Imu in the eyes. He arrived at midnight, climbing the white cliff alone. The first patrol of guards saw him and screamed once. Rox erased them with darkness that left no echo. Alarms screamed across the holy land within seconds. Marine forces deployed in formation around the sacred quarter, and from the central palace, an admiral marched to meet him. The admiral struck first with a column of pure fire. Rox did not dodge. He simply opened his right palm. The fire bent inward, swallowed by the growing dark sphere. Then Rox pressed his left fist into the same sphere. The tremor compressed the darkness into a single black point. He whispered the name of the technique under his breath. Yami Hokai, Dark Collapse, the first forbidden combination. He released it. The point detonated with reversed gravity. The admiral folded inward, crushed into a space too small. His armor, his bones, his scream, all vanished completely. The marines around him froze, weapons trembling in their hands. A second admiral charged with a giant ice sword raised. Rox moved through him without slowing his pace at all. The body fell behind, split clean from shoulder to hip. 12 elite guards collapsed before they even saw him pass. The path to the flower hall opened in front of him. He pushed the heavy white doors open with one hand. Inside, white flowers covered the floor like fresh snow. At the center, on a black crystal throne, sat Imu. The god watched him without surprise, as if expecting him. Rox felt, for the first time since childhood, real fear. But he did not kneel. He did not retreat. He walked to the center of the hall on the flowers. He spoke one phrase the government would erase from history. I remember the name you tried to bury forever. Imu rose from the throne for the first time in centuries. The air thickened. The flowers withered in concentric circles. But Imu did not attack. Something stopped his raised hand. Something in Rox's gaze reminded him of an ancient enemy. An enemy Imu had buried 800 years ago. Rox seized the hesitation. He walked backward to the door. He never turned his back. He never broke eye contact. Outside, an entire fleet awaited him at the gates. Rocks shattered every ship with one seismic blow amplified. He leapt into the sea and swam 3 full days. He reached Hachinosu half dead, with a wound on his face, a scar that ran from his right eyebrow to his chin, a scar that decades later on the face of his son would appear almost identical, without anyone explaining why. The government issued the highest bounty in pirate history, 1,500,000,000 berries for one impossible head. But Imu, alone in the withered hall, made a decision. He would not face Rocks again on his own ground. He would lure him to an island where traps were ancient, an island called God Valley in the southern West Blue. The report said one West Blue island held something dangerous, an unusual concentration of people carrying the forbidden D blood, a worldwide noble hunt across one designated forbidden island. That island was called God Valley in the old maps. He would walk into the trap with both eyes open, because Rocks, the most feared monster in human history, was about to show the world that behind that darkness pulsed the broken heart of a desperate, dying father. Stussy decoded it alone 3 times in her dim room, then walked to the throne hall and handed it to Rocks. Rocks read the message once, read the date, read the location, and for the first time since childhood, he felt crushed. Worldwide Noble Hunt. 38 days from the document signing. Island selected, God Valley, West Blue, Southern Archipelago. Stussy stepped back. She had never seen him lose control. She had never, in all those years, seen his fear. Rocks ordered her to summon the crew that same night. No exceptions, no delays, no questions. The Great Palace Hall. That night, the Rocks pirates gathered together for the first time. Rocks spoke. He told them about God Valley in 38 days. They would interrupt a private event of the world government. Newgate asked why. Rocks answered only that it was personal. Big Mom looked up. She asked if there was any loot. Rocks said there was a kidnapped woman worth more than loot. Big Mom and Kaido accepted instantly. Shaki was their friend. Shiki asked about nobles. Rocks said dozens, maybe hundreds. Newgate stayed silent the whole meeting, watching Rocks carefully. Finally, he asked quietly if the kidnapped woman was Eris. Newgate closed his eyes and sighed deeply at the answer. He said the crew would sail with him to God Valley. Because everyone knew it was a trap nobody dared name. Rocks did not answer, but his eyes answered the question. Newgate felt his chest cracking open silently inside his ribs. Newgate must rescue the baby, without conditions, without delay, was the only reason Marshal D. Teach ever survived. The next morning, the Rocks pirates set sail in 4 ships. When they reached the archipelago, the sky was burning red, the sea was unnaturally still. Distant screams rose from inside. The hunt had already begun 3 days before their arrival. Someone screamed the alarm from a high white watchtower. They landed on the northern beach at burning red dusk. The sky bled. The wind smelled of 3 days of death. Rocks did not stop. He walked over the bodies silently. The crew followed him in silence, reading his pain. Kaido crossed the forest in a straight line, breaking trees. Newgate stayed close to Rocks. He carried the secret promise. He had to locate the baby before anyone else. From a high hilltop, Garling Figarland raised his golden sword. But before the attack began, another small fleet appeared south. It was Roger's small crew, with Rayleigh, with his laugh. Imu from his shadow did not move yet at all. That moment came sooner than anyone could have predicted. Newgate whispered to Rocks that he knew the baby's location. Western Cave, 3 elders watching him, far from battle. Eris was the main bait, the one that truly mattered. Newgate hesitated. He could not leave Rocks alone here. He told him the promise from Hachinosu was the only thing. The baby was the future. He himself was only past. Newgate clenched his teeth. He nodded once, slow and heavy. He ran toward the Western Cave without ever looking back. With tears he himself had not felt fall in years. He reached the main clearing of God Valley at dusk. Garling Figarland stood there with his golden ceremonial sword. Beside him stood a tall wooden execution post in dirt. Rocks saw her. Eris saw him. The world stopped completely. For 1/10 of a second in the middle of battle, a silence between them was worth more than any crown. But Rocks was already upon him before the blade fell. He struck with a fist of darkness and pure tremor. The noble crashed into the trees 50 meters behind. Rox walked to Eris. He broke the chains with haki. He lifted her in his arms, weak, bleeding, still alive. She, smiling weakly, told him quietly that she knew. Rox told her the baby was already safe with Newgate, that in hours the three would be far from here. Eris nodded. She touched his face with shaking fingers. She told him she loved him. Then she coughed blood, heavy blood, too much for a normal hostage wound. Rox examined her. He searched for the wound, found nothing. Eris kept coughing. When he looked again, her eyes were lost. Garling from the trees raised his voice in cold triumph. He told him she had been poisoned 3 days ago. Rox did not scream. He did not cry. He held her. The darkness around them grew so dense the sky dimmed. Eris died in his arms mid-sentence, she was saying. She died with his hand on her cheek, waiting for an answer Rox still carried inside. And Gol D, Xebec, the most feared monster in history, stayed kneeling in the center of God Valley with her body, the corpse of the only person who had truly loved him. Behind them, Imu appeared walking slowly through dead grass, his presence withering the wildflowers across kilometers of land. From a distant hill, Roger and Garp appeared together. He walked toward Rox with his sword still sheathed. While Roger and Garp approached him with quiet compassion, the true climax of God Valley silently and finally began, because Imu had decided to seize the perfect moment, to erase the last adult Davy in the world here, right there, in that clearing, before every present witness. He knew his time had finally come to end. He smiled, that crooked smile, the same one the baby had, the same the world would see decades later, on another face. He laid Eris gently on the dry grass beneath him. He closed her tired eyes with 2 careful fingers. He stood up, turned slowly, faced the god empty-handed. He was not a man anymore. He was a hunger 800 years old, finally facing its meal. Meanwhile, in the western cave of burning God Valley, they saw, looking at his face, that Rox would not come. The chief elder, the same one from the cliff long ago, wild black hair, the black coin already around his neck. Newgate approached slowly. The child opened his eyes calmly. He looked at the giant without fear or hesitation, as if he had been waiting, as if told. He whispered it was time to leave the island forever. The child nodded once. He did not ask about his mother. He did not ask about his father. He simply stood up. He took a small cloth bag from beside the crib, a charcoal portrait of the cliff elder drawn by his mother, a lock of Eris's hair wrapped carefully in blue silk, and a piece of his father's ripped pirate cape, black. The chief elder touched the child's forehead with 2 fingers. The last heir, the last bearer of the inherited coin, the last child this clan would deliver to the world. He offered his right arm to take the elders away too, but the elders shook their heads together in quiet refusal. Their duty now was to die defending the tunnel entrance. Newgate did not argue. He knew there was no time. The sounds of battle outside intensified, shaking dust from above. He ran out with the child held tight against his chest. The child did not cry. He did not even speak. He clung to Newgate's neck with his small, thin arms. Behind them, the elders sealed the tunnel entrance with stone. She offered to hide the boy inside her private cabin, but Newgate refused. He shook his head slowly and quietly. The child would disappear on a raft under false name. Stussy understood completely. She gave the boy sweet bread. The child bit into it with premature teeth already formed. He set the child down gently inside and sat him. He told him, looking into his eyes, he would return. He would take him somewhere safe after the battle ended. The child nodded, and then, for the first time, he spoke. Small voice, high-pitched. He asked one single quiet question. Newgate stayed quiet a long second under the red sky. He told him, lying. Yes, he would return late. The child accepted the answer with that same crooked smile. He bit the sweet bread without asking anything else. Newgate closed the protective top over the raft completely, back toward Rox, back toward the final fall. When Newgate returned to the main clearing, he arrived late. Rox was already fighting alone against impossible odds. Roger and Garp were not attacking Rox with their full power. They were defending, trying to prevent the admirals from killing him, but Rox did not surrender. Rox attacked harder than before. His body broke a little more with every brutal movement, but before he arrived, Rox saw him from afar, and Rox raised one hand toward him. He made a sign only Newgate could understand from their old code. It meant Newgate must not intervene, must not save him. He must instead fulfill the promise. Take the baby, run. Newgate stopped dead in his tracks. He clenched his fists, but the weight of the promise was heavier than swords. Not Roger, not Garp, not Imu, not even Newgate himself. himself. Rox closed his eyes, focused his haki across the island, and with one final massive gesture, he launched all darkness. He launched the Yami Yami no Mi straight at the sky. And in that darkness, Rox made his most important decision. The decision that would answer his lifelong inner question. But now, holding Eris's death inside his chest like coal. Now, with his son sailing south on a small raft. Now, with Imu standing close behind him in the dark, he finally knew the answer to the only question. He decided destroying the world was not worth it anymore. He decided the crown of Davy Jones did not matter. Only one single thing mattered to him in the universe. That his son, Marshall, would survive this night and grow. He used the darkness to reach Newgate at the edge. He gripped his old friend's shoulder with bleeding fingers. He pressed something small and round into his open palm. It was the black coin, the Davy clan's ancient inheritance, the coin of his father, the coin from God Valley's beach. Newgate's eyes widened. The coin was still warm in his hand. Rox spoke quickly, quietly, without time for any other word. He told him to give the coin at age 20. Not before, not after. At 20, when his power awakened, he told him the boy must not know anything until then. He had to grow up free, discover his power alone. Only then would Marshall be strong enough to survive. Newgate wanted to argue, to fight him, to pull him away. But Rox gripped his huge neck and stared directly. He told him this was the last order he would give. Newgate nodded slowly, with heavy tears running down his beard, falling onto the dark earth of God Valley, silently below. Rox smiled at him one final time before turning back. He said one word, just one word. In that long silence, he said thanks. And in that small word lay everything. 30 years of brotherhood, 1,000 battles, a shared dream, a father's complete trust handed across the burning dark. Newgate stored the coin in the pocket above his heart, as close to his heart as the coin could possibly be. He promised, with only his eyes, to carry the boy home. Rox turned around. He walked back toward the dark center, toward Imu, toward the admirals, toward Roger and Garp. He walked as the darkness around him began to thin. Newgate retreated into the forest as the darkness slowly faded, fulfilling the promise, carrying the secret, bearing the weight. Rox raised both bleeding arms toward the burning red sky. Rox coated his right fist in dense liquid darkness. Then he forced the earthquake tremor into the dark coating. The shockwave could not disperse. It stayed trapped inside. He whispered the second forbidden name through bleeding teeth. Gura Gura, Black Quake, the shockwave that cannot escape. He drove the fist into the closest admiral's chest. The tremor exploded inside the man, not outside him. Bones, organs, screams, all shattered within his own body. The next admiral fled. Rox split him in mid-air. The third one tried to use haki to harden his skin. Rox touched him with the open palm of pure Yami. The haki cancelled. The body fell empty onto the dry grass. 3 admirals dead in 12 seconds. The clearing went silent. Then Rox D. Xebec, the last Davy king of the world, looked directly at Imu standing 20 meters away in silence, smiled that crooked smile inherited from his ancient bloodline, and spoke the final phrase he had carried for 30 years. He told Imu he had done what he came for. The crown of the world was not in him at all. It was sleeping in a hidden raft sailing south now. Then he focused everything left inside his dying body. Yami in his left hand, Gura in his right hand, and around both, the black flame of Conqueror's haki. He raised his fists above his head one last time. He whispered the final name, the forbidden royal technique, Meo Note, the hand of the Dark King. He brought both fists down toward Imu's silent figure. Imu trembled visibly for the second time in his existence. But Imu is not a god who tolerates defiance twice. He raised one pale hand. The air around Rox distorted. Something invisible approached fast through the cracking air. Rox did not dodge. He simply smiled that crooked smile. Roger, from afar, shouted. He leapt into the air. He attacked Imu with a fist wrapped in Conqueror's haki. Imu ignored him. The attack passed through him like smoke. The invisible force struck Rox deep inside his chest. It pierced him from within without leaving any external mark. Rox coughed blood, a lot of it, onto the dry grass. And in that instant, he finally understood what killed her. He fell to his knees. The darkness in his hands faded. The tremor reduced. His body, after 40 years of 2 fruits, was reaching the limit Stussy had warned him about. They had promised a public trial, a real execution. Garp came running across the clearing toward the king. He shouted at Imu that this was not the agreement. He said agreements with the D simply did not exist. Their kind deserved no trials, only silence. He walked away. He offered him help. He offered escape on his ship. Roger approached Rocks slowly. He knelt beside the dying king. He spoke a phrase Roger would carry until his execution. He told him someday Roger would reach Laugh Tale. Someday he would know the truth Imu had buried. When that day came, Roger would understand why Rocks did it, why one man tried to destroy the world to free it. He asked that when the battle ended, recover Eris's body, bury her on the northern cliff facing the sea, alone. Roger nodded. He promised with his hand on his chest. Rocks, satisfied, closed his eyes against the burning red sky. But before leaving, he raised his gaze one last time south. He searched for something on the dark horizon line, and there, on the distant southern water, he saw it. A small light, a tiny raft, a shadow, a promise fulfilled. He smiled that crooked smile one last and final time. He sighed deeply, the breath rattling through his broken ribs. And Rocks D. Xebec, the most feared monster in 8 centuries, father of a 5-year-old boy named Marshall D. Teach. But Imu did not know. Imu could not possibly know. He had not seen the southern raft leaving the beach, died kneeling in the arms of his only honorable enemy. Roger stayed there, holding him, while the admirals approached. He did not know about the small child hidden inside. And while the government celebrated their victory across every sea, while Roger and Garp buried 2 bodies on the cold cliff, one small raft sailed quietly through the burning southern water. Inside the raft, a 5-year-old child watched the dark sky. He did not cry. He did not even make any sound. And nearby, hidden on the main ship pulling away, Edward Newgate watched the small raft from afar through fog, fulfilling the last promise made to the captain he loved. That night, in burning God Valley, a king died alone, but on a tiny raft sailing south through the open sea, another king, still asleep, still small, sailed his own sea. The sea does not forget its kings. Never, not ever, and the blood of the Davy clan remained quietly alive. While the sun rose after the darkness of Rocks, the world government began erasing God Valley from every map, from every archive, from every book, from every living memory. But a young marine named Sengoku had seen the truth. Rocks D. Xebec had done both impossible things at once. His name was forbidden, erased, scraped from every record. But his blood, that night, left God Valley on a raft. Edward Newgate kept his promise from that dark Hachinosu room. He found the tiny raft at dawn near a small reef. He took the sleeping child onto his recovering pirate ship. When the Rocks pirates finally dissolved in scattered grief, Newgate traveled alone with the child to a new world island. There, in secret, he gave him to a family of farmers. He learned to read, to sail, to fight. He always wore the black coin around his neck, never asking. Newgate returned each year to see the boy on the island, but he never said the name, never said anything about Rocks. Marshall turned 20, and one day, he simply disappeared. He stole a small ship. He went out to sea alone, searching for something he could not name but felt. Years later, he appeared on Whitebeard's ship as a recruit. The young man was named Marshall D. Teach by everyone. Nobody on the ship understood Whitebeard's special attention, but Marshall found a fruit on the ship before that, the Yami Yami no Mi, the same fruit his father carried. When Newgate saw Marshall watching the dark fruit, he knew. He knew it was too late to tell him gently. He killed Thatch in the night to take the dark fruit. He fled. He vanished into the new world with his crew. Newgate did not chase him, did not order his death. He let him go silently, with the black coin still hidden. And years later, at the great Battle of Marineford, when Marshall returned with his new pirate crew to claim it, when he stole the Gura Gura from his dying captain, because he understood what was happening in that final breath, closing a circle that had been open for over 40 years. Today, Marshall D. Teach sails the seas as Emperor Blackbeard, without knowing fully who he really is inside his blood, but carrying the black Davy coin always hidden at his neck. Blackbeard stops on the dark deck and watches the horizon. He smiles that crooked smile inherited from his unknown father. That nostalgia belongs entirely to his father, Rocks D. Xebec, to the last true Davy king of the broken silent world, to a man who chose to die for his son, to a king who, in his final moment, was father, who chose his blood instead of the world's crown. The sea does not forget its kings, no matter how erased. True kings never truly die in the end at all. They are reborn, over and over, in the blood of sons. Sons who watch the horizon, waiting, without knowing for what. He holds a black coin in his hand under starlight, and one day, when Marshal D. Teach reaches Laugh Tale, when he stands at the very end of all the seas, the truth will rise from the deep water to meet him. He will learn his real name. He will learn his blood. He will learn the name of his father who died. And the world will tremble for the second time in history, because the Davy bloodline never truly dies. It only waits. It waits inside crooked smiles, inside hungry stares, inside coins. It waits for a son to finish what a father began. And the son, tonight, sails closer to that end than ever. He was not a man. He was a hunger eternal. And you, listening at the end of this old story, what will happen the night Blackbeard remembers his father? Will he finish what Rocks began on God Valley's beach? Or will he, like his father, choose blood over the crown? Leave your answer in the comments. The sea is listening.